everyone, it's Friday and you're watching Within the Frame. I'm Kim Bo-kyung. From conflict to peace, UN peacekeeping plays a key role in helping countries torn by conflict come up with conditions for lasting peace. Reflecting the populations and the need for gender equality, UN has been calling for an expansion of the role and contribution of women in such operations. And so women have increasingly become part of such an honorable work, making operations more effective. However, there are still much work that needs to be done to have women, peace, and security agenda be better reflected in enhancing women's participation for PKO. Why is it important to have women be involved in such operations, and what measures should further be in place? For more on this, we have invited very special guests. We welcome GJERDE, Major General and appointed Chief of Staff of the Norwegian Defense. She also served as Commander of the United Nations Peacekeeping Force in Cyprus. General GJERDE, welcome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for being with us. And we also have Maureen Wellwood, Colonel and Director of Programs at Canadian Forces College. Good to see you, Colonel Wellwood.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being with us. Now, first question to our General GJERDE. For those who might not be familiar with the UN's peacekeeping operations, when did this PKO start and what role does it play?
The first peacekeeping operation started in 1948 in Israel after the Arab-Israeli War. Since that, we have had 71 different peacekeeping operations. And for the time being, we have as much as 12 operations ongoing with more than 88,000 peacekeepers acting. And what's special about the peacekeeping operations is that it's proven to be one of the best tools to get the society from conflict to peace. And in particular, due to the three principles: impartiality, it's on consent, so we are invited by the nations, and finally, the non-use of force. Force is only used in self-defense or to defend the mandate.
All right, I see. Thank you for explaining for us what the PKO is. Now, Colonel Wellwood, for more equitable peace, female peacemakers demanded that women have their own voices and came up with the Women, Peace and Security Agenda, or so-called WPS. Could you first explain the concept and its significance in the realm of international peace operations?
Yes, so WPS was essentially the basis of the United Nations the Security Council Resolution 1325, which was instated in the year 2000. It recognized that women and girls have a disproportionate impact during conflict, and that they are often targeted. It also recognized that the women play a critical role in sustainable peace. So among the goals of WPS is to increase the presence of women peacekeepers and to incorporate gender perspectives within peacekeeping.
All right, I see. General GJERDE, as far as I know, the language of the WPS agenda was able to be advanced as the United Nations Security Council Resolution 1325 was drafted and adopted in October 2000. What was this resolution about, and in what ways was this resolution a landmark for developing the WPS agenda?
It's very much about what we just heard, that women and children are also infected by war and conflict, and maybe even more than earlier. So there was need for a resolution to handle this. And it is about the importance of having women active in both preventing and handling conflict. So we need a bigger share of women. We need women in leadership roles. We need laws that handle this, and in general, to involve women in preventing and handling conflict and war.
I see. And this resolution 1325 indeed served as a big milestone in your opinion as well, right?
Yes, absolutely. Because we see that to solve conflicts, We have to have a proper understanding of the root causes and how it affects the population. And for that reason, women also have to be part of both assessing the situation and what to do and the actions.
All right, I see. Now, Colonel Wellwood, let's talk about women in peacekeeping operations in more detail. In 1993, women reportedly made up only 1% of deployed uniformed personnel. Could you give us an indication of how many women are currently deployed as uniformed military, police, justice, and corrections personnel? And what do such figures suggest, in your opinion?
It's my understanding that the current numbers across the UN are about 6% of peacekeepers are comprised of women. And so we can see that there has definitely been an increase in numbers since what you advanced for 1993, but it's certainly a slow progress that we're seeing. The participation should not only be judged, however, in terms of numbers. We should also consider what kind of participation that women are providing. So it's not just about having more women, but it's about more women in roles of leadership and decision making that should also contribute to our analysis of this.
Right, I see. Now, General GJERDE, based on what our Colonel Wellwood talked about, it's good to hear that we were able to see certain improvement in figures. But as our Colonel already pointed out, the figures still seem to be a little bit low, though figures are not everything. Before we get to the efforts being made to have more women included in peacekeeping operations, let's talk about why there must be more women. First of all, how does female participation contribute to peace negotiations and conflict resolution?
Yeah, UN has done several studies on this, so we have pretty good knowledge, and they also are very similar to my own experiences operating both in UN operations and other operations. There are in particular 3 areas where we see more success with more women in the forces. First of all, enhanced intelligence and situation awareness. Where we have women present, we have a better understanding on the situation on the ground among the local population and the actors. And we also see that women communicate in a different way with women and men and have other perceptions that bring something additional to the table. The second area where we see we succeed better with more women is protection of both civilians and the force. I'm sad to tell that we see examples of sexual abuse, of lots of sad things that is not according to the UN standards in operations. But where we have a bigger proportion of women, we see less of such abuse and exploitations and so on. And the third area is that we see with more women, UN forces have better reputation locally. And that's also vital and probably combined with the 2 other areas. We really need trust to succeed in our operations. And for that reason, a good reputation means a lot, and at least 3 reasons to involve women in the operations, and a bigger share than we see today.
Right, I can definitely see the reason why a woman should be included in peacekeeping operations. Now, sometimes experience and examples could be living evidence, and so I'd like to ask both of our guests to share some examples or own experience of how women have contributed to peace operations. And so, Colonel Wellwood, could you tell us first how women can bring about positive outcomes in conflict-affected regions?
Sure. To answer this, I would bring a specific example that I saw while I was deployed with MONUSCO in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. We had been noticing that there was an increased number of assaults that was occurring on women when they were doing farming. So a lot of times this occurred when the men of the community were away fighting or protecting their families. And the women were left behind and were responsible for bringing in the harvest from the fields. But this left them very vulnerable because the fields were a fair distance from their homes. So MONUSCO was asked to help out in having a better presence and being on the ground to be able to intervene and protect these women who were transiting between their homes and the field. And the important aspect, I think, of women in this was not only that we were providing protection to the women, but that this issue had been raised through the use of engagements with the women population of the different communities. And it had been also discussed with some of the women who were working within civil society, the NGOs, and the UN protection of civilian component to identify this need that would enhance the protection of civilians.
Right, I see. Thank you for sharing the example. Now, General GJERDE, could you share your experience as well?
Yeah, we have many practical examples. And I remember when I was a young first lieutenant in Lebanon, we were not allowed to search women, the local women, even if we knew that they were smuggling ammunition and arms, because it would not be appropriate for our male soldiers to search. But I've seen later, both in Middle East and Afghanistan, that we have had women in the forces, which makes us more ready to search both personnel, but also go into compounds to find insurgents and such, and that it calms down the situation where we have women present. For the local women. I also seen for instance, in Cyprus, with women engaged in the negotiations, we have seen better progress because they see more the needs of the society. And we have also seen then when we involve UN women, the local nations also involve more of their own women. We saw that in Afghanistan, Afghan shuras, Afghan women more involved in handling the way between to peace. So that was both the practical, but also the more examples of women making a difference in the way we communicate with and understand the local population.
Right, I see. I mean, based on what both of our experts told us, we can definitely see how women can contribute to resolving conflict. But Colonel WELLWOOD, I heard that gender equality within the operations also reportedly contributes to building stronger and inclusive post-conflict societies as well. How is this so?
There are a lot of studies now that show us that the more that women are included in the negotiations for conflict resolution, the better the chances are that the peace will be lasting, and that there are better chances that they will actually be able to find a peaceful solution to an issue. Part of this is because women are often able to cross boundaries of factions. So they will have commonalities among women that don't necessarily aren't restricted by the clan or the community that they belong to. And when they are able to sit down and talk with others, they can find common solutions to things that perhaps are not as easily identified without the women being in the room. So better able to identify solutions that can be applicable to a long-term peace.
All right, I see your point. Now, General GJERDE, what more potential benefits and outcomes could there be if more women are deployed in peace operations?
Well, I think Maureen WELLWOOD stated it clearly. But I think both in understanding the situation better, because we talk to women and see more also the women and children's, how they are affected by the conflict. But I do also think that the diversity makes us percept what also the men engaging in conflict resolution, their expressions and their actions, that with different perspectives, we hear more and can have a better understanding. I think that's the most important part of it. But also that we could be good role models for the local women to build their societies, to build the regimes or the authorities for the future. And again, like just mentioned, this might and probably will make more long-lasting peace solutions.
All right, I see. Diversity is what matters. Now, up until now, we have been talking about potential benefits and positive outcomes that a woman participation in PKO can have. But now let's talk about further efforts that need to be in place to have more women be in the PKO operations. Now, and so, Colonel WELLWOOD, what measures can governments take to enhance the recruitment, training, and deployment of women in peace operations?
In my opinion, the single most important thing that governments can do is to provide equal opportunities to all genders, to make sure that the women in their national forces have the same training opportunities and employment opportunities as men do. Within the military and outside of the military, I think also contribute to it. The UN itself, I think, has some really good goals and is progressing very well in that manner to provide a safe, inclusive, and respectful environment where women can be employed.
All right, more chances should be given. Now, General GJERDE, in a much broader sense, what specific policy recommendations or strategies do you believe should be put in place to further advance the woman peace security agenda in the field of peace operations?
I think I'm impressed with what UN already has done. It's put on the agenda. It's one of the top priorities, and it's more and more understood. When that's said, I think it's very much about education. And this is something broader for the societies. We have to build this understanding of the importance in our schools, both in civilian schools, university colleges, in our military schools, and also in pre-deployment training, in training as we are abroad, to understand how this affects the solutions, how having more women present makes a difference and makes us more successful.
Right, I cannot agree more. Now, Colonel WELLWOOD, as a last question, I'd like to ask you this. What also matters is support from men, in my opinion, and it is crucial that men promote gender equality and women's participation in peace operations. How could they be encouraged to become allies and advocates for the WPS agenda?
I would say first that there's no reason to exclude women. Women are capable, qualified, and they have a right to serve. But if that isn't enough, then I would say that it's not a question of feminism and advancing the rights of women. It's a question of humanity and achieving peace. And if you're excluding women, then you're excluding 50% of the innovation that the population can provide you. You're excluding 50% of the intelligence gathering capacity that a force could have. You're excluding 50% of the solution. And if we're striving to achieve peace, why would we want to lose out on that?
Right, I cannot agree more. It's very touching how you pointed out that including women is a matter of humanity, not a matter of feminism or any other things. All right, well, unfortunately, this is all the time we have for today's edition. Thank you, Colonel WELLWOOD and General GJERDE, for your time and insights. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, that's all for Within the Frame tonight. We'll be next Monday with more in-depth stories. Thank you for watching. Enjoy the weekend and goodbye.